Okay, imagine a peaceful city suddenly gripped by an epidemic. But we're not talking about a disease with a fever or a cough. No, this was an epidemic of unstoppable, exhausting, and literally deadly dancing. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking the 1518 dancing plague of Strasbourg. It honestly sounds like a myth, but it is 100% real. So let's just jump right in and set the scene. Picture this. It's July 1518. The city of Strasbourg is totally peaceful. You've got merchants filling the streets, kids playing in the markets. Life is just doing its normal thing. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, this woman named Frau Trophia steps out into the street and just starts dancing. At first, nobody really cared. They probably just thought, she's celebrating something. But then hours passed, the sun went down, and she was still dancing. The next morning, still dancing. For almost an entire week, she just kept going, completely unable to stop. Now, you have to realize the physical toll this took was just horrifying. We actually have historical records that say things like their feet bled, their muscles failed, yet many got back up and continued dancing. So yeah, this wasn't some joyful street party. This was agonizing. Imagine being so utterly exhausted that you can barely stand. Your muscles are completely giving out, but you are basically trapped inside your own body, forced to keep thrashing around. Witnesses actually described people crying, their families just begging them to stop. And the terrifying part, Frau Trophia was really just the beginning, because this thing spread like absolute wildfire. Day one, it's just Frau Trophia, but within a week, dozens of people have joined in. Fast forward to August, and we're talking hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably in the streets. And again, not because they wanted to, they were literally collapsing from heart problems and severe dehydration. The whole city was terrified. They didn't have modern doctors or psychologists to explain this. It was just pure, unadulterated panic. So what do you even do if you're the authorities facing hundreds of people dancing themselves to death? Well, logically, you'd think, okay, isolate the victims, try to calm everyone down, right? But the city leaders of Strasbourg, they thought the victims needed to, and I quote, dance the sickness out. So in this bizarre twist of historical irony, they basically threw a giant festival. They literally built stages, hired professional musicians, and set up public dancing areas to try and cure an epidemic of unstoppable dancing. And wow, was that a mistake. It was probably the absolute worst decision they could have made. The music starts playing, massive crowds gather to watch the spectacle, and guess what? Even more people start dancing. Talk about throwing gasoline on a fire. They took this strange anomaly and accidentally cranked it into a full-blown, region-wide epidemic. Travelers started spreading rumors all across Europe. The panic got worse, and the death toll just kept climbing. For centuries, people were totally baffled by this. They had all these theories. First up, the supernatural curse. Europe in 1518 was super religious, and a lot of folks blamed Saint Vitus, a figure from local legends who supposedly cursed people with uncontrollable dancing. But obviously that was just religious panic, no scientific basis there. Then you've got the really famous poisoned bread theory. Back then, bread was made from rye, which can get infected by a fungus called ergot. Ergot actually produces chemicals that cause hallucinations. Sounds like a solid theory, right? Well, actually, scratch that. The flaw here is that ergot poisoning causes agonizing pain, muscle spasms, and severe paralysis. The victims would be way too weak to move, let alone dance nonstop for weeks. So, if it wasn't a supernatural curse, and it wasn't some trippy poisoned bread, what the heck was it? Well, modern psychology points to mass psychogenic illness. Sometimes you hear it called mass hysteria. It's essentially a condition where severe psychological stress creates very real, very contagious physical symptoms within a community. There's no virus, there's no bacteria, no poison. It's just fear and stress spreading from person to person, causing massive physical reactions. But for that to happen, you need a very specific kind of environment. To really grasp this, you have to put yourself in the shoes of someone living in 1518 Strasbourg. The reality was brutal. Imagine waking up every single day to crop failures causing severe famine. There are disease outbreaks everywhere. You're dealing with extreme poverty, incredibly high taxes, and this constant suffocating religious and political fear. For the average person, every single day was just a desperate fight to survive. The psychological pressure was enormous, and researchers actually noticed something pretty fascinating. The vast majority of these dancing victims came from the poorest communities that were already living under this tremendous pressure cooker. When people are pushed to the absolute edge by unrelenting stress, the human mind can do some wild things. Like researchers say, fear becomes contagious, anxiety becomes contagious, behavior becomes contagious. So applying this mass psychogenic illness theory, Frau Trafia starts doing this weird dancing thing. It freaks people out. Rumors start flying. Anxiety shoots through the roof. And slowly, one person's weird behavior triggers fear in someone else, which triggers imitation, and suddenly you have a massive, city-wide panic. It spread exactly like a virus, except this virus lived entirely in their minds. Okay, so how do you cure a mind virus? Well, the authorities finally realized that hiring musicians and building stages was a catastrophic blunder. So they completely flipped their strategy to break that psychological feedback loop. Step 1, ban the music and shut down all public gatherings. Step 2, get the dancers completely out of public view. They actually took a bunch of them away to a shrine to pray. And step 3, just wait. They took away the audience. They killed the spectacle. And you know what? It actually worked. The epidemic just suddenly ended. And the way it faded out perfectly matched the exact pattern of a psychological contagion. Once they removed the audience, the new cases dropped off, and within weeks, the whole thing vanished as quickly as it started. For modern historians and psychologists, this is a massive smoking gun that we're dealing with mass hysteria. It didn't end with a vaccine or an antidote. It ended because the social conditions changed. When the crowds left, the dancing stopped. Right, so you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, sure, that's the Middle Ages, people were super superstitious, that could literally never happen today. Well, I kind of want to pop that bubble for a second. Let's fast forward a bit to the year 1962. In 1962, this incredibly bizarre thing happened in Tanzania called the Tanganyika laughter epidemic. It started with just 3 students laughing at a boarding school. Sounds harmless, right? Just a joke. But the laughter actually spread. Soon, you've got dozens of students laughing completely out of control. Then hundreds. It got so bad they literally had to force schools to close. This went on for months across multiple communities. And just like in Strasbourg, they never found a virus. They never found a poison. It was a completely modern case of mass psychogenic illness, proving that our brains can still hijack our bodies in these crazy contagious ways. And I think this just brilliantly hits the nail on the head. It's been over 500 years since those exhausted people danced through the streets of Strasbourg. Since then, empires have come and gone. We've got smartphones, modern medicine, you name it. The world is completely different. But human nature? It hasn't changed a bit. Our minds are still incredibly powerful. We are social creatures. We pick up on each other's cues. And when a large group of people experiences intense fear or stress together, the results can still be absolutely extraordinary. So here's a thought to leave you with. We always look back and think people in the past were just irrational, but they were really just reacting to their environment, exactly the same way we do. The dancing plague wasn't about demons or curses. It was a testament to the staggering power of the human mind. Put yourself in Strasbourg back in 1518. Imagine that overwhelming, suffocating collective panic. If everyone around you suddenly started dancing, would you have been able to step back and see what was really happening? Or would you have caught the bug and joined the crowd? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the mysteries around you.